Hey guys, this is Logan Freeman with the LiveFree Investors Podcast. I interview investors and business owners who share investment advice so you too can live free. Today, I'm talking with Tyler. Tyler, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Logan, thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be here. I am a commercial real estate broker, investor, and developer based in Nashville, Tennessee, and we do office, retail, and industrial properties.
Fantastic. So I'm curious to hear what did you start with first? Were you a broker first, or was it the investment side, or was it kind of at the same time? Because I'm curious. I have a similar path, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So it actually took me a little while to get into investing. I started off as a broker, making sure everybody else got the deals first.
Sure.
And I started off working with a boutique development firm here in Nashville, which was actually a great experience. I got to work on office, retail, industrial.
Yeah.
We did some multifamily new construction. We did some single family new construction. So had a good diverse experience. And then decided to go off and start my own thing. So started with the brokerage.
Yep.
And then I started realizing, hey, now that I'm making money, why am I still giving everybody else all these great deals? So started investing and started developing too.
Absolutely, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's hard, especially with those types of assets, right? There's not really a small office building. I mean, there is,
Right.
but last thing I really want to go do is go get a small office building. I look at office in the same way that I look at multifamily in a certain light, right? I mean, you have a big office building, and some of my real estate mentors were always like, Logan, you don't want your tenants living in your building. And that's something very interesting to think about. But one of my buddies who does primarily office investment and management here in Kansas City, they look at it like, hey, we've got an 80,000 square foot office building. We have 20 different tenants. They sign 12-month leases, maybe 5-year leases, not 6-month or even just shorter term, right? So that's really interesting. It's a space that I have not done a ton of work in here in Kansas City, because maybe you could talk to this a little bit. If on the brokerage side, if you're trying to specialize, or do you think you need to specialize? Whenever a lot of new brokers reach out to me, they're like, hey, I'm getting started. What do I need to do? And what should I specialize in? What's your advice to those guys? Do they go out and do retail, industrial, and office? Do they specialize in one? How did that process go for you?
I think that's a great question, because not a lot of brokers do what I do, which is, you kind of do everything,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's that boutique service, which, again, I was raised in that. If you're going to go to one of the bigger firms, they're going to tell you, look, you're going to be the single tenant net lease guy in Tennessee.
Yep.
Or, you're going to be the industrial tenant rep guy. And to me, that just seems so boring. So when I started my own firm, I didn't want to niche down like that. Now, there is a significant amount of benefits that come with that. I mean,
Sure.
if you become the industrial guy and everyone knows that, they're calling you when they need industrial.
Yeah.
So there are definitely benefits to finding a niche. And so instead of niching down by product type, or by leasing versus sales, or tenant rep and buyer rep versus landlord, seller rep, I actually niche down into a specific neighborhood.
Yeah.
Which a lot of commercial brokers, at least in Nashville, don't tend to do, or they haven't done traditionally, because Nashville has for the most part been a smaller market. You've got to work kind of everywhere you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so I kind of niched down into East Nashville.
Okay.
So I know this neighborhood better than anyone else. And that was what I decided to focus on. So I live here. My office is based here. And so, we do office, retail, and industrial over here. And we actually don't even touch multifamily, because in my opinion, that's so specialized as well.
Yeah.
If you're not going to focus solely on multifamily, since it's so different from the other three, you're just not going to be good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I love that, man. I mean, you looked at it from the perspective, okay, I'm not niching down necessarily on an asset class, but I am niching down on a geo, right? I'm niching down on an area, and I'm going to be the expert in this area. Kansas City is kind of in the way that it's spread out, right? I mean, it's a huge city from just a square mile standpoint.
Yeah.
And so
Just like Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it was very interesting. So I always have told folks that I don't buy houses. I don't buy property. I buy income streams. And if we can solve for the operational piece of that income stream and mitigate that risk, I'm open. We've done some office. We've done, hospitality. We have 2 hotels. We've done a lot of multifamily. We've done a bunch of mixed use assets, but it's because we solve for the operational piece on the back end. And if I was to just niche down in Kansas City to, the downtown or the Crossroads area, I wouldn't be very busy. So I'm out there in, Eastern Jackson County. I'm out there in north of the river, down south a little bit as well, because just from a population standpoint, our greater metro area has about 2.5 million people. But man, I tell you what, they're spread out from, 60 square miles, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I love that though. I mean, I've read Rod Santamassimo's book, Brokers Who Dominate, and he's got some folks in there that talk about that. It's like, this is what I do. I do all asset classes in this geographic area, and I'm the go-to people and that keeps us busy. So I absolutely love that. And then just talking to the investment piece before brokerage, man, it's always this chicken before the eggs, kind of scenario where it's like, well, I want to get into investment, but I don't have any money. And the way I looked at this was like, well, I've seen, what it takes to scale single family homes up. And that's not for me. I don't want to do
Miserable.
that, And so what I said is, well, what if I just go take a smaller piece of a bigger pie in a deal that is a much better asset and has much better management? Let me get started that way. And so I think that a lot of brokers think that they have to go buy something themselves, which is just not the case. There's people putting these deals together in your market, in our market, in everybody's market that you can go get a piece of and learn that process. That's exactly how I got started.
Exactly, man. I mean, that's how I bought my first deal. I went and found an office building, and I made 2 phone calls to some guys that I knew had some money, and they were looking to invest. And so, I've never bought anything on my own. To me, that's not the best use of my money.
That's right.
To be honest. So bringing that investor capital is super important, and the money comes if the deal's there.
It does. It absolutely does. So what would you say to that you think maybe the best thing about being, well, I get to ask you in 2 lights, right? What's the best thing about being an investor, but what also is the best thing about being a business owner? Because you're both, man.
Yeah. Well, so I'll start with the second question first. I mean, the best part about being a business owner is that I get that value added onto my balance sheet and on my net worth.
Yes.
So when I went to go get my first loan, I didn't really have a whole lot of cash. I didn't have a whole lot of assets, but I had a business that was worth a significant amount of money.
That's right.
And so that helped me qualify for a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was massive. That wasn't even something that I had anticipated before starting my own company, but damn, I wish I had started it earlier.
Absolutely.
I mean, it made a massive difference. Biggest thing I love about being an investor is, I'm from Nashville. This city has given so much to me. I love, the way that commercial real estate is really weaved into the fabric of a city. And so being able to be a part of that, you get to go in and take a building that maybe has, it's been vacant for years and it's just falling apart, and you get to renovate it and put a coffee shop in there.
Yeah.
And now people are having meetings there. They're, writing books in there, and they're having all these interactions in this place that was missing before. Right. So it's really neat to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love it, man. To me, I did sales in software and services. I did sales and startup companies. But the coolest thing about being an investor is you can literally see the fruits of your labors, and go enjoy them. And other people can go enjoy them. Or if you're on the housing side like I am, you can go buy a building, renovate it, and create clean, safe, affordable housing for somebody. And that's a real thing, which is really, really cool. It drives me every single day. All right, I'm excited.
I was gonna say, well, it lets you impact a neighborhood, right? So I bought this building within this. It's called Old Hickory Village. It's a small little suburb of Nashville.
Okay.
And I reached out to the neighborhood, posted on the Facebook page, hey, what would y'all like to see here?
Yeah.
And we got a ton of great ideas, and because of that, we ended up putting a pharmacy in there because there wasn't a pharmacy. It had an elderly population.
Yep.
And they didn't have a pharmacy for miles. And so we went out and kind of found that for them, and it's been a phenomenal relationship.
That's awesome, man.
For the neighborhood.
Yeah, getting the buy-in from the community is so important, and and I love how you did that. You just went on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm buying this building. What do you guys want?" And then you see, all of this support come in, and people are going to take care of your property. All of that. That's fantastic.
They love
that, man. All right, cool. So. We chatted just briefly right before we started recording. Keeping up with the current trends and opportunities can be a challenge. And you said something very interesting about our current climate. This is July, July 6th right now. So we're right after 4th of July. Tell me your thoughts on where we're at in the economy, commercial real estate landscape. Let's dive into that question.
Yeah, what I had said was, if you're not buying right now, or if you're afraid of buying right now, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And, it's probably a bit of a controversial statement, but, I think that's very true. Look, there's less competition than there was 4 months ago, five
Yep.
months ago for all of these buildings. Owners, sellers may be willing to work out better deals. We haven't seen the financing terms that we're seeing now in a long time. I
Yep.
mean, banks are being a little more careful with who they're lending money to, but man, interest rates are so low, they're basically giving you money.
Yep.
So, and you think about it, like, look, commercial real estate's not going anywhere. If you're planning on holding for the long term anyway, why put everything on pause?
Yeah.
That's at least the approach that I'm taking. I mean, look, I'm going to be investing in Nashville for the next 50 or 60 years. I don't want to look back and be like, man, I wish I'd bought a couple more buildings
Yep.
during that time period, because I think it's a phenomenal time to buy.
Yeah. Well, I was reading an article from CoStar the other day, and they always track the big REITs and the big players, right? And that's fine. I think it's good. But at the same time, the interesting thing out of that article was, out of the top 10 real estate investment trusts, there's been one that has been active the last 90 days. In the last 90 days, they've bought over $285 million worth of real estate. And they bought a property management division from a different company for 200 million bucks.
There you go.
And so, like, that is like, okay, well, if somebody is seeing something, it means the other 9 are just too big or just too lazy, or their investors are just like, hey, let's wait this thing out, and they're just taking the time off. But there's this one entrepreneurial type REIT that is out there just busting their balls, finding deals and buying them up, man. And I just loved that mentality, because everybody just says, well, it's one way or it's the other. Not necessarily. Out of the top 10, one is going against the grain. And I really, really like that approach. And we've done the same thing. We've closed, 2 or 3 transactions, as acquisitions for the last 60 days. So we've been viewing this opportunity, and I couldn't have said it better. We have less competition, right? I mean, we got a deal under contract. It's over 400 units here in Kansas City. And I would say that we're probably $5,000 to $6,000 per unit under what we would have paid pre-COVID. And so when our investors ask, hey, how do you feel comfortable about this? Well, I can show you 4 or 5 other deals I just brokered at a higher price. And this is going to come back to at least that. There's, over 400 units. That's a lot of money that's baked into the deal. You
got a built-in discount, man.
I got a built-in discount. So I love that idea, and that just that viewpoint, man. And look, like, the underlying value of commercial real estate is not changing. Everybody's worried about, can you pay rent? Is office changing? All of these different things. Sure, a small subset, yes, that will change. But
sure,
the the majority of the deals that we're doing and that you're doing, that people are still asking for this product, And so I think that's just something to just keep in mind, not just to read the headlines. Real estate is hyper local. Get into your market. I mean, I would trust you to say, hey, that's a good deal, because you're in that neighborhood, brokering those deals, buying those deals, and it like the back of your hand, man. So just find somebody that's doing it on a regular basis and invest with them. I think it's super smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you're hitting a great point. You look at these REITs, and you've got to think of what kind of assets they have to buy in order to get to that scale.
Yeah.
And think about how many of those top 10, how much of their portfolio is big box retail.
Yep.
I mean, if half of your, if even a third of your portfolio is big box retail over the last 4 months, you probably would put everything on pause too, because you'd be terrified about what's going on.
Absolutely.
So, I think that having that local diversity. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. So thank you for sharing that. I share a very similar sentiment here in the Kansas City market. I love asking this question. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because dialing down the best advice that you've ever received into one thing is very difficult, but maybe it's just something you've recently heard, or just a mantra you've kind of lived by. What's the best advice that you've ever received as an investor and or a business owner?
Man, I'm actually going to give you 2 pieces of advice. One is just get out there and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, go, if you haven't bought that first building, there's no podcast, there's no book, there's no course, there's nothing that's ever going to, educate you enough to where you feel comfortable.
Right.
Go out and buy it. That you will learn so much more in that first deal. Even if you lose money, hopefully you at least break even.
Yep.
But even if you lose money, that education is so worth it. The other one is get everything in writing.
Yeah.
Do not do anything without having it in writing. I learned that the hard way. on a development deal that I was a partner in, and expectations they got a little sideways.
Yep. Yep. I couldn't agree more. It doesn't matter if that's your friend, if it's your family, whatever it is,
Does not matter.
Get it in writing. That's fantastic. So this is a prime example of how the social aspect of this show gets awesome guests on. Tyler, this is your opportunity to promote somebody to the show. So what other successful investor, business owner like yourself should be on the Live Free Investors podcast?
Absolutely. Have you had Bruce Peterson on yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. I highly recommend giving Bruce a call. He is a syndicator out of Austin, Texas, owns about 1,000 doors. He goes by the apartment guy.
Okay.
And so he educates, he syndicates apartment multifamily deals, but he also has an education platform that he's going to be launching here pretty soon on how to syndicate multifamily deals.
Awesome. All right. I've seen Bruce's stuff on LinkedIn, so I will make sure that I get Bruce on the podcast. Hey, when Seth was mentioning that you would be a good guest, he said you were using social media in an interesting way. So this is a bonus question, but how has social media been, kind of a catalyst to your success? And what are you doing differently that maybe other brokerages aren't down there?
Yeah. So, that was my original Blue Ocean.
Okay.
If you haven't read the book Blue Ocean, it's an incredible book. It teaches you how to go find the water where the sharks aren't feeding. That's right. The red ocean. There's blood in the water. Go find your Blue Ocean. And so, I was like, well, I got into the business when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I'm a millennial and we communicate through Instagram.
Yep.
So I started, getting it big into Instagram, and my mentor at the time kind of told me I was wasting my time. He said, no one's ever going to buy real estate from you through Instagram or online. Commercial real estate's a relationship-based game.
Right.
And I was like, well, I think you're wrong. But I'm going to continue doing it.
Sure.
And, the amazing thing is millennials build relationships online.
Yep, they do.
So we've actually gotten some of the biggest deals we've ever gotten through Instagram. And it's because I don't take I'm not shoving marketing and sales down everyone's throats. In fact, if you go through my feed, I don't have any buildings that, I'm trying to sell or lease or anything like that. It's all pictures of me or clients and kind of behind the scenes of what goes on in the world of commercial real estate, which is why we ended up getting as big of a following as we did, because people were interested in seeing, the underworld of commercial real estate in Nashville. So, if you're interested in following me there, it's just at commercial in Nashville with underscores between the words.
Awesome, man. Well, I love it because I did something very similar in the kind of the buyer rep world of investment sales in Kansas City. And I brought this idea to my broker at the time, still is, she's great. And I said, hey, I'd like to represent buyers in the transaction. She said, you're going to waste your time. They just, they're all over the place. You can never pin them down. 12 months later, she's handing me Rod Santomassimo's Brokers Who Dominate. Logan, here you were the top, salesperson in our office. And I will. So I basically had outsold everybody else combined in the office, which was super exciting on the buyer side of representation. And now we've got this process where we pipeline dollars from New York, from California, and typically 1031 exchanges right into Kansas City. And I think that's an untapped market. And we're also trying to use social media kind of similar to what you were doing on Instagram. But I think that my time is best spent just hammering LinkedIn. So I've been focused on LinkedIn a lot. But I love it, man. You were willing to go against the grain and had the confidence to do that. And it's proven to be very successful. That's a lot of, that takes a lot of balls, but also a lot of action and a lot of self-confidence. So I love that, man.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, I think that there's going to be a lot that changes in commercial real estate in the next 10 years. You think about, right now, the average broker is like a mid-50s white guy. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that's going to change. I mean, look, cold calling is not the best way to do business anymore. I just don't believe that. So I think that, there are plenty of ways for younger people to find success in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to ask, since I've been looking at your background there, is that a book that you have written? Is it a book that it is your book?
Yeah. So that's my book, Open for Business, The Insider's Guide to Leasing Commercial Real Estate. We launched that February of 2018. It actually became an Amazon bestseller within about 48 hours. But I had noticed working with small business owners that they just had no clue what was going on throughout the entire process. And a lot
Yeah.
of them would find themselves in trouble because of it. They didn't have representation, or they didn't know, the right way to do things. So I wrote basically the guide on how to lease commercial real estate.
I love that.
So yeah, you can get that on Amazon. Yeah.
All right. Well, I lead the sales training at our brokerage, and we have probably 4 to 5 leasing agents now. That very well, let's connect offline how I can get, 5 or 6 copies of that. And I'd like to put a training program together for our brokerage based on that. I don't do personally a lot of leasing, but I would love to read that book just so I can understand it for my own property. So that's awesome, man. I love that. Would you say that, writing a book had a lot of success for you? And did you self-publish, or what did that process look like for you?
Absolutely. No. So I have my publisher is out of Austin. But no, it was quite a process. I mean, it took us about a year to do it, but
yeah,
it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time I was, I guess, 26 years old, when we released that, and I'd been in the business for 5 years. So, I knew enough about leasing to write a book on it, I guess. But man, it just having a book, having some sort of media like this podcast,
yeah,
having a YouTube channel or something like that, it just sets you up as the authority.
Yeah.
So when I'm going in and I'm pitching, developers and investors on why we should handle their leasing,
right,
and I hand them a book and I say, look, I literally wrote the book on how to do this. Why would they choose any other firm over ours?
Right.
They're not going. It seemed silly. So it gave us a massive leg up.
Man, I love that, because, I've heard books called, glorified, business cards. But what if you think about this scenario? You go into that pitch and you're prepared. There's probably 4 to 5 other firms that, got the call similar to what you did. They hand their awesome little business card that everybody, just puts in a stack on their desk and just throws away and never looks at again. Or you say, hey, here's my book on how to lease or how to syndicate apartment complexes and buy over, $200 million worth of real estate. Man, that's going to set you apart. That's going to set you apart. One common theme, you're a young guy. I think you're the same age as me. I'm 30, so I think you're pretty close.
28.
Yeah, so you're 2 years younger than me. You're setting the trend. You're going against the grain. You're setting yourself apart. You own a business. I think this is so important for so many folks to hear that there is a new age of business that's going to be happening, especially in the commercial real estate world. People are not going to stop investing in real estate. And like you said, those 50, 60, sometimes 70-year-old guys and gals that are in this industry, they're going bye-bye here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure I stay very, very close to Tyler and your company. I just start following you on things. I'm so excited that Seth, I'm going to send him a text message right after this, man. But man, that is so awesome. Okay. So last question, because I've gone off the script quite a bit here, mostly because I just love enjoying learning from you here. But the most important question of the podcast, my brand is all about living free. So what's your best tip on living free on a regular basis?
Man, the sooner you get out there and you get those investments cash flowing, the sooner you can walk away and do whatever you want. Yep. That's the beautiful thing about this industry, is that every day I wake up and I actively make the choice to go to work. I don't have to, but I'm making that choice because I genuinely love what I'm doing. So that's how I live free.
Man, that is spoken like a true investor. Tyler, so how can everybody find you? How can we follow you if they're interested in Nashville, the market, leasing, open for business, you name it? How do we get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So probably the central database would be tylercauble.com.
Okay.
You can follow me on Instagram. If you shoot me a DM, I will respond to it. It doesn't matter what your question is. I love talking about commercial real estate. So if you got a question on your investments or how to get a space leased or whatever, feel free to shoot me a message. That's at commercial_in_Nashville. And we just recently launched a YouTube channel, which I'm fired up about. We started that during all the shutdowns.
Yep.
So I'm basically just educating you on various aspects of commercial real estate investing, leasing, management tips, market updates, stuff like that. So it's really fun. I've had a good time doing that.
Good, man. That's exciting. So To get a hold of Tyler, slide into his DMs is what
Slide
he's
in him.
saying. He's taken, though. I did see a ring on that finger, I'm pretty sure. So you can.
This is actually my high school ring.
All right,
which,
never mind.
Here in Nashville is big, but I do have a girlfriend. So yeah.
All right. So you slide into his DMs for work. There we go. How about that? All right, man. Thank you so much. This is Logan Freeman with the Live Free Investors Podcast, where investors and business owners share investment advice so you too can live free. Connect and message with myself and with Tyler today on LinkedIn, Instagram, tylercauble.com. We will also link that on the post on LinkedIn. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Logan, I appreciate you having me. This was great.
Until next time, guys, live free.